Hello and welcome to the Iron Maiden. My name is Abby, and with me today I have a very special guest, Ian Hsu. Could you introduce yourself, Ian?
Yeah, hello guys. So I'm Ian Shu. I guess longtime Vynnset player at this point. Been playing since pre-Rosetta. Started the game on Vynnset. Haven't looked back. Well, not that much since. And I recently seconded RTN AGE tournament, which is like a little bit of a bigger thing in my area, which is SoCal. But yeah.
Yes, so I've got you on because not only have you just seconded a pretty notable event, but your list was pretty interesting and wanted to hear about, how it served you well or what you might want to change. So, to start off, how did you get into Flesh and Blood? You said that you started with Vynnset, but did you play any other games before Flesh and Blood, or is it your first TCG?
Yeah, so I've been playing TCG since I was really young. Starting from about like 4 or 5, my cousins kind of introduced me to Yu-Gi-Oh, which is kind of a bad TCG to start on, I'll say. And then I got older. I played in like some Yu-Gi-Oh things here and there. Never was really too great at it. And then I got really big into Magic the Gathering.
Mm-hmm.
Starting around where Return to Ravnica, I think, was the set. And then played that for a long time, all the way until just about when I started playing Flesh and Blood,
Mm-hmm.
actually. Because with the whole Magic thing, I was a very big modern player. For anybody that knows, the modern scene is kind of harsh just because of the amount of sets that Wizards print directly to modern, and it feels like the
Mm-hmm.
power creep of that format really got insane, especially for me. So, uh, for like a couple years there, I was just playing Commander, but it was always a very casual format. I never took it too seriously, so I really wanted a TCG to like kind of scratch that competitive itch, and I got introduced to Flesh and Blood, by a man called Anthony Pham, who was very good at the game as well. And he beat me really bad. And I, and then I was like, well, I'll choose a character that I really enjoy the aesthetics of. That isn't really as good on the tier list. I think I talked about it a little bit yesterday on the interview with AGE as well. Um, but I really enjoyed Vynnset. I've had a really good time with her, and since pre Rosetta, I haven't looked back since. She got a lot better post Rosetta, and I always get a lot of flack from some of my friends about it who also play the hero. They're like, "You don't understand the struggle of pre Rosetta Vynnset," and I'm like, "I played for like a month."
Okay, so not long before Rosetta, but just a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you wanted a little bit more of a competitive game. Do you still play Magic, like Commandos, anything like that?
So from time to time I will, but the funny thing is I play Commander now more with people that have met through the fab scene than like anybody that I used to play Magic with.
Right.
Um just because I used to be more entrenched in like the modern scene and do more of that. So like when Commander became like the big thing, a lot of my friends that I met through modern didn't really play a lot of Commander, and a lot of the newer people that I met through Commander don't really play Fab. So it's kind of a hard kind of overlap, especially
Mm,
if you really want to, because Fab competitive events, you go to RTNs, you go to PQs, and so there's a lot of time that you want to prepare, that you want to think about Fab. So I think just going through all those things, you don't have a lot of time to spend uh doing other things, at least for me.
yeah. Weekends get tight in
So
these seasons, don't they?
yeah. You go to work Monday through Friday, and then like Saturday, Sunday, you're like, well, I spent Saturday and Sunday playing Fab.
Okay, so you mentioned that you joined Vynnset, you started picking up Vynnset because of the aesthetics. What aesthetic particularly drew you to her?
I think one line that sold me for it was whenever you play a shadow non-attack action, you may pay a life. And
Hmm.
then you didn't need to tell me what happened afterward. I read that and I was like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I can pay a life. Oh, right there.
Yeah. So it's more a mechanical aesthetic, a little bit more than maybe like a visual aesthetic.
Definitely a little bit more. I do really like the shadow aesthetic as well. Really big into like things that are a little bit more dark, especially in like high fantasy.
Yes.
So yeah,
But you're also a Levia player, I understand, so that makes sense as well.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Very big Levi player as well. Yeah.
that's good. But she's not as competitive right now. Is that why you chose Vynnset over her?
Um. Yes and no. So the season prior, I played a decent amount of Levia, and I just really didn't like how I had to play her in response to the meta because it felt like the meta was very either you have to be like better than Syndra on a numbers basis, and you had to be faster than Verdance. So it felt like the list turned into like this aggro slog that was like, okay, well, maybe if I draw four hands that just convert into like 12 or more damage, I'll kill you, right?
Right. Yep.
And I I was kind of more into the aspect of Levia that's like, yeah, block a little, send a little, my cards are overrate. Eventually, if I don't find the right cards, I can die, but in the meantime, here's 3 for 9. So,
Hmm. Yeah, I this meta this whole year, all of last year, 2025, it's felt like a bit of a squeeze between the Earth decks and whatever aggro deck happens to be best at that time.
mhm.
I think that was a big thing with Aurora and Florian back in the start of the year, or like recently Syndra and Verdance. There's been a bit of a squeeze, like you say, where you have to be better on both ends to compete.
Mhm.
All right. Now I have heard of the AGE several times, but I've never looked into it. You mentioned that it was an RTN, but what makes an AGE tournament different than a normal tournament?
So there's not that much that's super different. You can kind of like see it as like um they kind of sometimes AG markets itself as like, oh, it's just like a really large armory that is like more competitive. And in a lot of ways it can feel like that. Especially in SoCal, where I attend the AG and where I live. Because over here you meet a lot of the same players. And there are new players that come in. But like usually it's a very chill vibe. Nobody is really out there to like rule shark you or kind of get you. Um,
Yeah.
and it feels like more friendly than like a super high rated event where you might see people really want to like push it to that level. It's not to say that it isn't competitive at all. I'm just saying that the atmosphere can feel a little bit more friendly than like a like a tier 4 event, um, for example.
Okay, sure. So what you came second in was effectively an RTN, but it was a bit more of a high production and maybe a bit more friendly.
Yeah. I will say that the competitive level is very high usually at AG,
Yeah.
especially dependent on like the number of people that go there. So like for this one, since there was like 82 people there,
Wow, that's
I think that
huge.
day. Yeah, so it was a lot harsher than like your normal RTN and
Oh yeah, it
like the
says
skill level of the
78 people, I think.
or yeah, or
Oh,
something like that.
something
I
like that.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. It was just crazy. But like usually when you have like that many plus people at um like a larger event, they'll probably split it into 2 days or something like that. And then
Yeah.
like playing out 7 rounds back to back to back is very grueling.
Yeah, definitely can be. Well, that makes sense because I've always heard of people talking about AGE as like representing something like, oh, the meta, the AG over here, like an important staple of the meta. It says something important, and that high level of like competitive players there maybe pushes people to respect it as a staple of like, here's what you can expect.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, just as a little bit of a caveat to that, that we do have a lot of local people that do influence the meta in their own way,
Mm,
like depending on like what the top players are playing or what flavor of the month it is, you'll see like a lot more of those decks. So I wouldn't say it's like super indicative, just like any one tournament isn't super indicative of like any single meta or like how a meta is supposed to shape out. But I do think the level and the rigor and what is at stake does make it like a good like at least like tool to see like what's good out there, right?
yeah. All right. If we look at this tournament, I can see on my screen your matchups.
Mhm.
So it's good that AGE posts this stuff. This is good data. So you've got Cilio, then Florian, Valda, Syndra, Dash AO, another Cilio, another Florian, Kasai, and then a Cilio in the top eight or the top four and finals. So a lot of Acilio that day. Is that one of those flavor of the months you were talking about?
I would say definitely more so now than ever. Especially because AGE is dominated in SoCal by the AGE Pro team, and those guys come out, they'll like find a meta deck like Chris Iali brought Kasai, right? And he's been on that deck for a while. He's been touting like how good it is, and he won a major event with it. So definitely there's something there, right? But then the AGE members will probably like get like a deck that's good, they'll tout it, they'll make it meta, and then like all the AG Pro Team members will like switch off of it and then play another hero, which I think is very funny. So like the flavor has been like, yeah, Kasai is good, but let's all play a Cilio sort of thing.
Right. No one wants to be
Which is
the on the meta deck or like they get bored of
yeah,
it
yeah,
and move on.
yeah. So it definitely feels like a little bit more of a flavor of the month thing. Although I will say, three out of the four Cilios that I played that day were like more hardcore Cilio players. Like Alex has been on the deck forever. And the two other players that I played earlier in the day have played a Cilio for a long time. Whereas I think for Peter, it's more of a flavor of the month thing.
Okay. Well, congratulations, Peter, for coming first on his flavor of the month deck. That's very impressive.
Yeah. Shout out to Peter. Yeah.
So let's talk about Cilio a little bit more. I noticed that you won 3 out of 4 of those matchups. Is that because you think the Vynnset versus Cilio matchup was Vynnset favored, or do you think that there was like a luck factor in that?
It can be Vincent favored, but I don't think that it's favored by that much at all.
Hmm.
Like if you go down to the numbers of it, I would say if both players know what they're doing, it's more of like a 55% matchup, if that. Because as Vince said, you have disruption pieces, you have ways to prolong the game in order to see your disruption pieces. But if they just natural combo you on turn 2 after playing 2 sigils of brilliance, you're like, okay, cool. Right. So
Absolutely.
um
So of those Acilios, were they all trying to like quick combo you, or did any of them pack D-reacts? Because I've played against a few Acilios that actually take a defensive stance into the matchup.
so I'll say none of them packed D-reacts into me. I think putting in D-reacts for Cilio into the matchup is wrong, in my opinion. Just because as a Cilio, I feel like you are the deck that needs to kill the Vynnset.
Right.
Just because if you're packing D-reacts and you're diluting your combo, how are you gonna deal with 9 damage in 4 turns when your life total starts at like 30? Is it 36? I think.
36 is correct.
Yeah. So like I'm gonna be sending big damage every single turn, you're the one on the clock, is the general
Mm,
feel of the matchup, in my opinion.
makes sense.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I don't feel like D-Reax is right. I think D-Reax in the sideboard is fine for Acilio to bring. Um, but I wouldn't, as if I were to play Acilio, I wouldn't bring more than like 3 Sync Belows into the matchup.
Interesting. I think this was back when Syndra was like the best deck back in Calling Sydney. Acilios were playing things like Shelter and Fates to try and stop Mask from hitting. I don't know if that was the right call to bring that into Vynnset, but so it sounds like they're being more aggressive recently.
Yeah, and I think the deck should be more aggressive anyway. Like Acilio's hero text and the fact that you're running Volzar means that you're gonna run a lot of no blocks, right? So it doesn't make sense to me to like um play defensive when you're guaranteed to have like 20 no blocks in your deck, right?
Totally. All right, what about Florian? Your first two Florians. This is a matchup that personally, when Florian came out, I thought was very, very bad. And then as Vynnset evolved, I felt like it became actually a pretty neutral matchup. And then as Florian has evolved now, I think that it's become maybe negative again. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah. Um that it's very interesting that I feel like you had this thought process because I had this very same thought process
Absolutely.
about Florian. It's like almost spot on. Which is very interesting because when Florian came out, I don't think anybody in my local scene was playing Florian a lot. But I had a friend on the side that was interested in playing the game, and at this point I was like pretty seasoned. Well, seasoned is a strong word. It's like I've been to a lot of events. I know how to play my deck. I know how to play the game. And he was like basically beginning off. So I'm like, okay, let's get some Talishar games. And he was like, oh, I really like Florian. Let's play Florian versus Vynnset, right? So he just took a stock standard Florian list. And no matter what I did, I could not beat this player that basically played like 2 Talishar games on Florian. And I was like, oh my god, this matchup is like god awful. But then I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want people to bring Florian to locals. Because I was like, oh, I don't want to lose, right?
That's funny.
Um, but as people brought it out more, I started trying to like find something to beat it. And I think it evolved into a very fun matchup. I think especially during RuneStack Florian, I thought that that matchup was really really fun because well, usually against RuneStack Florian, a lot of decks don't have a lot of fun, but I think as the Vynnset player, in the first couple of turns, your goal is just to set up and like try to burst them down anyway. So like you were just setting up cards, and then my RuneStack opponent was like, "Wait, you're not gonna attack me? Wait, I can't
Yeah.
decompose." So like that part of the matchup, that kind of dynamic was always very fun to me, and even till to this day, I feel like the matchup is very fun when I take that approach to it, and I think that's the correct approach to it. I
Mm,
still think the matchup is not favored, and I think against my first Florian opponent, I definitely got a little bit lucky, got a little bit bailed out. Um, Random at the end of the game I had a random widespread ruin banish, and I told my opponent that I needed to get lucky here, and I hit a Cole off the top to win the game. So
oh, sweet. So was there any particular change that you made to your deck that you felt like made the Florian matchup better? Because for me, there was a one card change that I felt like made the matchup significantly better. And I was just wondering if you had the same experience.
I think definitely Mordred Tide makes the matchup a lot better. Um Afterwards, I will say that Pummel is interesting. Um I will bring it into the matchup. I enjoy it. But other than those two pieces, it's more so of like a macro level decision of what you're gonna do. Like for example, I know if I'm gonna go into a Florian, if they don't have Earth cards in their graveyard early on, I'm just gonna not attack them. Like
Yeah,
I'm gonna be like, okay, it's your responsibility to get your own earth cards into your graveyard. I'm not gonna help you.
totally. Yeah, I felt like Pummel made the matchup significantly better. I'm not
Mhm.
on a Mordred list at the moment, although I'm looking at it because it seems like people have figured it out. But I
Mhm.
felt like Pummel had made a pretty big difference,
Yeah,
which is
yeah, yeah.
funny.
I think Pummel also really helped me in that matchup. It really helps me into Verdance. It really helps me into Kasai. So
Oh, Kasai, I haven't tried it there. Maybe I'll try it there.
yeah. Oh, well, I like it, but you know.
That's good. All right, so let's look at one more fatiguey style deck, which is Valdar. So were they
Mhm.
a kind of big fatigue deck, or were they trying to actually do like seismic surges?
Well, they were more so trying to do like their kind of game plan with with a little bit of seismic surges happening. Of course, Guardians can always like go fatigue if they want to versus Vynnset. They can like present 60 and then fatigue you because they have the blues, they have the blocks, right?
Yeah, it's on
Um
us to play better.
yeah, yeah. We're the beatdown, so to say, when it comes to like Magic the Gathering terms.
Yeah,
Um so like for me, this is kind of getting into like my deck and like why I like Grasp Reaping Blade so much is because I think I was reflecting on it today, thinking about like why I like Grasp Reaping Blade so much because a lot of the questions over the past 24 hours was like, why Grasp Reaping Blade? Why Grasp Reaping Blade?
yeah,
Why grass? Why not vexing? And I think a lot of it has come down to the fact that my meta has some guardian stands that will be there on like I will face them at some point at locals somewhere, right? And they're just going to be playing guardian all the time. It might not be the best time for guardian. It might not be like a super great guardian meta, but they will be playing guardian, right?
yeah,
So in the guardian specifically, I was like, okay, I need more block and I need more ways to do things on turns that they're going to let me do things with a hand that might not always do something. And I think that's why I enjoy grass so much is because there's a decent number of times where like you're doing the burst Finset thing, you're double rune gating, you're triple rune gating, right? And then you're left with no rune chance and your opponent has no cards because they block with everything and they drop and pass and you drop and you're like, wow, this hand does nothing, right?
yes,
If I was on Vexing Cool Hand, I would banish a rune gate card, I would arsenal a card and IP2, right?
yeah,
um and I think I really like I really like Grasp because first it fixes the first turn of the game. So, because a lot of your rune gate cards are 3 cost, you want to get to 2 rune chance as fast as you can so you can get to 3 rune chance on the start of your next turn, right? And I think turn 0 most of the time you're banishing a rune gate card, right? You're making a rune chant. And then if you have some malefics to play, some setup to play, that's great. But if you're on grasp, you can always just pitch a couple of cards, make a rune chant. Next turn, you can start going, right?
yeah,
Um, and I think also like people are like, oh, you if you never pitch the grass the rest of the game, isn't it worthless? I feel like having that first turn always be consistently, I'm gonna send a 3 rune gate card, 3 cost rune gate, with the grasp is like enough for me to bring it into like most matchups anyway, and why I like it so much. Uh, Other than the fact that it blocks 3, which is crazy. Like, why does it block 3? It shouldn't block 3.
yeah. Old
Rune
legendary
Fridge is
cards, right?
Rune Fridge is crazy. But going back to the point where like you attacked and now you don't have any rune chance set up, like I don't want to go into my next turn and be forced to be feeling like I'm forced to pop vexing in order to send a turn. I
Mm,
feel like I want to be able to like banish a rune gate card, pitch in the grass, set up my turn again, make it feel like it's turn 0 of the game, arsenal a card. Okay, your turn. What are you gonna do, Guardian? Right? I don't
mm,
believe in Guardian 4-card hands. You're not gonna convert this hand, right? Even if you do some damage to me, I have grass to block out your crush effect. I'm gonna come kill you next turn, right? And especially on something like something like Spinal Crush, right? Grass plus D react, you're good, right? Or
Mm.
a lot of their other crush cards is like grass plus 3 block, you're good in a lot of cases. And as I was reflecting on like some of the reasons why I like grass so much, I think a lot of the reason why is the fact that there are a lot of like guardian stands, and I think grass really helps in guardian specific matchups. And because I was so used to that, and the fact that I brought grasp and reaping blade into Volda, and I kind of know how to approach that, really helped me out, even if they were gonna try to fatigue me.
Okay. Yeah, great answer. So, my follow up question would be I loved Scepter of Pain for the same reasons that you say about Grasp, it can filter those bad hands out. Do you think if we got Scepter of Pain back or a similar card that could filter, that would take the place of Grasp, or do you think that Grasp is going to be the best in slot for that reason?
So I don't think grasp is necessarily best in slot. I do think when we're in a more defensive meta, that vexing quo hand is very good just because it allows you to push like 4 wide turns.
Yep.
Like you're never gonna get a 4 wide turn with grasp. Like it's probably never gonna happen. It's okay to hang up the code. It's okay. We'll be okay, right? But I think the peak on vexing is definitely higher. I just think in most games, grasp just feels better. I think a lot of the reasons why we enjoy vexing so much as Vynnset players um, is we think we're forced to think a lot about our deck. It's a very complicated deck. You have to think a lot about a lot of the lines, and you see all the upsides of vexing. But I think what a lot of Vynnset players struggles with, and what I struggled with in the very beginning when I was playing Vynnset, was considering more what your opponent was going to do. And I think having grasp helps you a lot in combating what your opponent's going to do, right? Because what if my opponent doesn't send anything at me? How am I going to filter these cards? What if my opponent does send something at me that has a not confidence, that has dominate on it, right?
Yeah.
How am I going to live, right? So I think that grasp and being on grasp has made me a lot more disciplined Vynnset player, if nothing else. And I think it's a good thing for Vynnset players to play on, just to wrap their heads around it. And if you still like vexing, definitely go back to vexing. I'm not saying anybody should copy my list, but um it does really center you. It does make you think a lot more about how turn cycles are going to
Mm.
go, how you should respond.
Well, might be something I can look into trying out. I don't want to do any brewing really before Pen comes out because obviously things could change, but Grasp's always a card that we should keep in mind. You're right. It's such a powerful equipment piece. And to just say that Vexing is always better and forget about Grasp is probably a mistake.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that Grass Reaping Blade was not developed by me. It was developed by a friend. His name is Dennis. I in my interview yesterday, I did shout him out. I'll shout him out again today. Dennis the Tall. Um, if you know him by his YouTube tag. But a lot of what um me and him have been on, and what I think is really funny is that our echo chamber is, oh, grasp is best in slot, like vexing sucks.
Oh,
which
interesting.
which now that you say like vexing is best in slot, we should never consider grasp, is very funny to me, because me and him have just been in that echo chamber of just like, no, grasp is always best in slot. But I think there's merits to both. um I think that um there's a lot of lists where you need vexing, and I think that the opinion of grasp is not worth considering can be skewed by the fact that your list needs vexing, right?
Mm.
So um definitely want to be measured. Definitely consider everything. Don't just default to one thing just because you're used to it because you really like it. Right. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I've got lots of questions about your list, but before I get into this particular list, if we're talking about Vynnset, do you think that what you brought on the day was the best list that she has right now for you to play, or do you think that there were some changes that you would have made in retrospect, or you would make if you were having another tournament next weekend?
So I would say for me personally, I would not change the list for myself just because I'm used to it. Um, I will say, however, that I know of a different list that is very vexing focused that always runs uh Flail of Agony and Grimoire every single game
That's my
and
list.
tries well, like yeah, well, not exactly your list. Definitely like more so of a definitely of the other. Well, I guess it is your list. But definitely more so the turtle burst sort of style that
Oh, sure, yeah.
right that was back made back well first coined by Viscerai players right when they were on Scaletta right so I think that that list has a lot of merits, but I would feel like your room would have to be very defensive deck dominated. You would have to see a lot more Florians. You would have to see a lot more Kasai's even, and a lot less Acilios on the day. For that list to be superior, in my opinion. And I think I'm just more comfortable with my list overall.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really enjoy the sort of steps that I go through in order to play the game. I really enjoy the setups that I know and the sort of interactions that I know for the list that just work in my head, right?
Yeah. All right. I've got questions about your list. So we've already talked
Mhm,
about Grasp, talked a little bit about Reaping Blade, but I want to go more into Reaping Blade specifically.
mhm.
What do you run it for? Do you run it for the 1 for 3 weapon, for the no life gain? And like, where do you put it in?
So, both reasons are very big as to why I like Reaping Blade. Um, I so first and foremost, right? Reaping Blade, 1 cost, 3 attack. If a player has more life than another player, they cannot gain life. I really enjoy my opponents not gaining life. I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoy my opponents playing Sigil of Solace and being like, wait, this doesn't do anything. Um, so that part of it I really enjoy, especially because in a lot of games, Vynnset can feel like the deck that is on the clock, and having your opponent not be able to just run into an exorbitant lead because they're playing life gain cards feels really good.
Yeah.
If not anything else, right? It feels really good. You know that they're going to be on 40 life, and they're not going to scam you out of like gaining more life, right? So
Yeah.
that part of it I've always really enjoyed. Um, Especially because a lot of the Reaping Blade tech was developed during a time when CYB was still legal.
Totally.
So
So important
yeah,
back then.
yeah. So I think especially during that time, Reaping Blade coming out, kind of filling that slot, helping you out is very good. But the aspect that it's a 1 for 3 weapon, I think, can't be undermined at all. And I think in a lot of games, like I'll get a lot of people talking to me saying how flail is really good because it's a free weapon. And then they'll be like, "Yeah, no, I understand that you're running tunic in your list, but you only get a reaping blade attack every like 3 turns, right?"
Mm-hmm.
But in my mind, reaping blade is a way for you to spend your extra cards. And in the moment, it might feel bad, right? In the moment, you're pitching a blue to swing 3, right? you're only getting one value out of the blue because you only synced one resource into the Reaping Blade. But in my head, I'm like, I just spent that blue for 3 value, right?
Whereas in the flail version, you would not be able to spend it at all.
Yeah, in the flow version, you wouldn't be able to spend it at all, right? And I think because my list does run 3 room blood incantations,
Yes.
and I really love room blood incantation. It just feels so nice to go room blood incantation, go again, rune gate, reaping blade, right?
Mm.
Um, which I really enjoy. Um, and even when you're not doing that, when you're not playing a one cost, sometimes you have creepers up, right? And I just pitched a blue to creepers last turn. I have a blue to play creepers again, but what am I gonna do with the extra resource, and what am I gonna do with the action point, right?
Yep.
So and I think Reaping Blade really fills that hole for me. And I think into especially like Kasai or some of these more defensive decks, I think turn over turn swing Reaping Blade is just a thing that you can do in order to like force them um to respect you, force them to respect the fact that you're not going to kill yourself in order to kill them.
Hmm.
Is a very big thing for me. I think that's also why I have more go again pieces because I really value that Runegate, Reaping Blade sort of play style.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that it's very as with all Runegate, Rune Blade equipment, Reaping Blade is super insane. The fact that it costs 1, and I've been in situations where I'm like, I'm not gonna block with this red Runegate card. I'm gonna send Reaping Blade for 3, and
Yeah.
it felt like the right play because I was getting the defensive player, forcing them to take the extra damage, and um, yeah. So I mean, that's a lot of the reason why I like Reaping Blade. I think in my games yesterday, it didn't come in as much just because the matchups where I don't bring Reaping Blade are specifically Dio, Syndra, um, Florian, and Acilio are like the 4 specific matchups where I don't bring in Reaping Blade. Otherwise, I bring in Reaping Blade into most all matchups, just
Right.
because it also pairs really well with Grasp, right? We see that with Florian.
Yeah.
Um, pitching pitching blues into it, swinging with it is definitely lines that you can go when you don't have any malefics out, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and it is funny when Vynnset does it, I will say. So
Yeah. So I've obviously played Reaping Blade quite a bit, especially back in CYB or in the heavy Earth metas. What I found was that I didn't miss Flail into a lot of these slower decks, Earth decks. It was actually Grimoire that I was missing. I found that,
yeah.
especially against the Earth heroes, they both do Arcane. Well, forgetting Jarl for a second, they both do Arcane. And the Eloquence can often win a game when you can cull at the end of the game, either to get an action point or to take a card. So, um, do you ever miss having Grimoire?
Um yes, that's definitely been a pain point in some situations, especially with the advent of Cole, right? Because you're gonna include 3 Coles in your deck. Why not? It's the most broken card in the list.
It's pretty good.
Right. Um there's a reason why Chain plays it in LL, right?
The one he's allowed
But
to.
yeah, the one he's allowed to, right? Um yeah, so I think in those situations, Grimoire definitely is a pain point of not having Grimoire, right?
Mhm.
That's a little bit of why I still bring it into Florian. Just because they can't scam me because they're gonna be on Reaping Blade, right? And then
Yes.
the 3 attack is like, okay, well, um, I'm just gonna have to find my Rune Gate cards and have to be better doing that way, right? And then Grimar can kind of help me in those situations. Um, but I feel like definitely you don't miss Flail as a Vynnset player, and I think it's kind of sad because it is her
Yeah.
specialization card.
I totally
Um,
agree that it's it's really unimportant in those setup matchups like Guardians,
Yeah,
Earth. It feels pretty
yeah,
worthless into most of those matchups.
yeah, yeah. Especially if they block it out the whole game without having to feel like they're down on resources. It's just
Yeah, of
it just
course.
feels bad.
Yeah. All right. Next piece I have a question about. Lots of armor in this deck list. Crown of Dichotomy. This is a card that I have tested before,
Hmm.
wanting more access to AB, especially against Verdants, and
Hmm.
also it has an interesting ability. Do you find that you're using it because it has Arcane Barrier, or are you using it more so because it has the ability to rebuy particular cards?
All right. I am very glad that you mentioned Verdance because Crown of Dichotomy is only in the list for Verdance.
Absolutely, that's
Um,
how I had it when I was testing the card.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because my list is running more blues, right? So I want AB3 into Verdance, but I also want to bring Reaping Blade because they'll scam you. And the 3 attack is definitely not bad into Verdance.
Yeah,
So when I was looking over my list, I was thinking about my matchups. I was like, well, what am I gonna give up to it? Because the options in the past have always been, well, bring Dyadic, bring Vexing, AB3, right? Still bring your
yes.
headpiece, bring your boots, right? That's always been the answer. Um,
Missing Tunic is such
but
a big deal, though.
yeah, missing Tunic feels really bad. But also whenever in the past when I have had Face Purgatory Inadvertence or when have had Spell Void 2 because Kano was still a thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, I felt like they were always not doing that much, right?
Right.
Like Face Purgatory can solo win you a game, and that's the height of the card. But in Verdance, it usually doesn't do
Anything
much
really.
much of anything really. Like it'll block 7, draw your card. It's not bad versus
Yeah.
Felon,
Yeah.
right? But usually it's not doing that much, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I'll bring AB3 still. But then I've found that the crown has been very interesting, especially in late game scenarios where I pop it, ensure that there are specific cards on top of my deck. Maybe I'm sending a Shadow Puppetry that turn. Maybe I'm getting an insured Ruin Banish. And it can absolutely get you there in the late game,
Hmm.
especially if the card that you're putting on top with the Ruin Banish is Cole, right? You pay the life, you play Widespread Ruin. Um, well, you have to pop the crown first because it's an action.
Yeah.
But you put you put 2 cards back on top. You put the coal back on top, and then you're like, well, this coal is gonna go and banish, and I'm gonna play it this turn in order to kill you, right? So
Yeah. Okay. That. Yeah. That's how I had thought of the card effectively as well. And do you find that it's worth running? Because clearly you're running it. I haven't been. Do you find that it actually helps the Verdance matchup?
um, yes and no. I will say Verdance is the deck that is the worst for you, as
Cursed
Vynnset.
completely.
It's so bad. They have so many tools. They gain life. Like, what is this deck? They do arcane damage. What the heck?
They have
Like, it's
Scour.
six. It's 6 arcane damage. It's 9 arcane damage. You can't go down below a certain life total because they have their boots, right? Um, and it's cursed, and then they play Scour, and you're like, well, I just got time walked. They basically played an ALS. Like, what can I do, right?
Yes.
Um,
An AOS that does
so
you 6 arcane.
yeah. I mean, they sometimes do 9 arcane because they have a tree. Woo, good for them. um, but yeah, I mean, Verdant's matchup is just cursed. I
Mm,
mean, I have the one slot specifically for it, but I don't try to go out of my way too much other than that. From
yeah.
the sideboard, for that matchup, just because it is so bad, you kind of have to high roll. So I'm more so dedicating more of my slots. Like, if you see some of the go again cards, I'm definitely teched a little bit more for Gravy, just because I feel like I can swing that matchup more in my favor. And uh, yeah. So Florian, winnable, hard. Verdance doesn't feel like it's winnable sometimes. Sometimes you do just scam them and it's nice because Felling of the Crown shouldn't exist next to Light Up the Leaves.
Yeah.
And 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 so I would rather just take on Mr. Undead Sea Captain, right?
Right. So, yeah. Basically, we're having almost the exact same thought process. The difference was that I had basically given up on the Verdance matchup and said that, if you high roll, you high roll, but 90% of the time it's an auto loss. So I didn't bother putting a slot in for it. But I think that if I was going to try to improve the matchup, Crown of Dichotomy would be the first card I reached for.
Yeah, yeah,
Especially because I'm a Vexing player, so I would be able to run Crown, Vexing, Flail, and Grimoire to have AB3. Or even if I put in Ripping Blade to have AB2, which is still pretty good.
yeah, yeah.
All right, makes sense. I like that we're having very similar ideas here, so is making this conversation a lot easier, I think.
Yeah, it's like it's definitely not going to be out of left field, you know. I mean, at least I don't think so. I think the biggest thing for a lot of players when they see my list is like, no vexing.
Yeah, it's
What?
grasp. It's
But
definitely the grasp thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely it's a lot of because the blues, and I think it's funny also when people see my list and they're like, Mavrian Sky's blue. What? What is he doing?
I do have
What?
questions.
Um, but I will say that in the first couple of iterations of the list, all the way back when like a little bit after Rosetta and CYB was running around and I was on Grass Beeping, I did have 3 Mavri and Skies Blue. So
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense if you're running Reaping Blade more often to have both more Go Again and more blue cards, right?
yeah, yeah.
So I guess we can start with the Morph Blue because we're on it. You are playing Machinations of Dominion, which is the best blue Go Again giver. And
Yes,
then
yes,
are you
yes.
playing Morph because it's just the second best blue Go Again giver?
Um, I mean, pretty much, unless you want to run Flying High, which
That
I have
was my
tested.
other consideration, yes.
But I think if Flying High just said give your next attack +1 and go again, I think it would be more of a consideration instead of it being locked to the color of the attack that was getting the go again.
Yep.
Um, I think is the biggest thing. Or if it was color locked and it blocked for 3, hey man,
Oh,
like
that would be
I'm all for
good.
that. I'm all
Yeah.
for that. Um, but the fact that it blocks 2, the fact that it's color locked for the +1, I think is a big
Yeah.
reason why it doesn't go in. I think there's some cases where you put Flying High Blue over Mob Skies Blue into the list. Just because you're never gonna get the value of the +1 Brune Chant unless your opponent is like, well, you sent you sent a Banshee, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that, right? Um,
Yeah, I
so I
totally
it
see that.
in the list right now, it's definitely more so because it's the second best blue and it's good into gravy, right? So
Oh yeah, true. You do get that guaranteed rune chant into gravy. That's a pretty good point.
mhm.
Because yeah, I was thinking flying high does have a +1 value that you get to control, whereas Morph Skies has a +1 value that your opponent generally gets to control. But there's so few blues in the list that I think that Morph Blue is still better than Flying High in a list that's running 6 or less blue attacks, and you're only running 4 blue attacks.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, so it makes
yeah.
sense.
So it doesn't really make sense, right? So yeah. And I will say, uh, don't sleep on Blue Mavrian because when you pair it with Mordred Tide against Gravy, you suddenly get 2 rune chance
Yeah,
this
suddenly it's
turn.
a yellow Morphrian.
Oh yes, we can
Yeah,
play those.
well, that's the next card I had a question about was definitely Mordred Tide. So,
Mhm.
in my experience building Vynnset, there has been 3 main deck types that try and beat fatigue in a different way. And that's the big thing about the deck types of Vynnset has been how do they beat fatigue? And Mordred is one of them. I think that Revel is the other, and sometimes these get mixed together, but usually they're a bit more apart. And then the red line deck list that has more like go again attacks is kind of the third. So what puts you on Mordred above Revel, for example?
So Revel is a very, very powerful card. I think that in other lists it has more of a home. I think definitely in a vexing list it is far and wide superior. And I think in that list you can mix a little bit of both, just because
Mm,
vexing can always be like your backup plan.
right. You
And
can
it's not
always
terrible. Yeah.
Revel without worry and then Vexing to play the game next turn.
Yeah. I think one of the bigger reasons why I'm a Mordred Tide enjoyer is because is partially no Mordred Tide enjoyer is partially because I am such a big Mauvrion Skies enjoyer as well.
Yeah.
Um and I think that those two cards just pair really well together, and I think the fact that I get so much value off of playing against Gravy, attacking his allies, is a big thing. And I think the part about Revel and Runeblood that um I dislike, other than the fact that it makes it so that your Deathly Whales basically have no text
Mm,
if you don't close the chain, um, is the fact that it is a 2 block, right?
true.
So Mordred Tide is your uh anti-fatigue card, but in a pinch, blocks 3, right? So
Yeah.
I think that that part of it cannot be understated. Just because also there's a lot of times when I was playing Revel that like I parked in an arsenal and I was like, oh boy, I'm gonna get a big Revel turn.
And you
And
never
then
ever draw it.
I never draw it. I end up IPing myself because this card is stuck in my arsenal. They never sent a CNC at me because they realize that I'm IPing myself. And I'm just like, man, I don't like you, Revel. But
Yes.
um Mordred Tide in a pinch, always playable. Blocks 3, right? And when you're going off, even if you don't have Malefics, it turns your Deathly Whales into fuel for your other Deathly Whales, right? Who
Yes.
doesn't like playing Whale on the Whale, right? So yeah, that's
Absolutely.
definitely a big part about it. And also, you can shadow non-attack Whale if you don't have go again. Creepers, Mordred Tide, close chain, 3 rune chance, right? So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I Mordred and Revel, I think in a lot of ways are kind of the same card. They're both
Mhm.
power cards that have different restrictions on how to get 4 or more arcane damage out of them. So for
Mhm.
Mordred, you need to have an ability to make rune chance, so Deathly Whale or Malefics typically. And for
Mhm.
Revel, it's the restriction on basically this is going to be second chain link is good, but it can never ever be first chain link is good.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm becoming more convinced every day of Mordred's superiority, and I'll be testing that coming into Pen.
Mhm.
So my next question would be if I was building a Mordred deck, my first look is to sort of maximize Mordred's. And I think
Mhm.
that the best way is to get shit tons of Malefic incantations on the board.
Mhm.
And I would look
Mhm.
to Sonata Galaxia. But
Mhm.
you are
Mhm.
not playing Sonata Galaxia. And my question
Mhm.
is why?
Mhm. All right. So the Sonata Galaxia question, I knew it would arrive. Uh, I know a lot of Vynnset players love Sonata Galaxia. Um, I think that in a more bursty build, when you're gonna play towards your big spike turns,
Mm,
yes, Sonata is very good, right? Um, but I personally don't like it for a couple of reasons. Again, blocks 2, right? I personally don't like adding more 2 blocks to my list specifically. And
yep.
I mean that is also partially because I play against a lot of guardians, I've said, right? Giving up more cards in order to stop a crush effect feels really bad. Um right? But I mean, additionally, right? Sometimes Sonata is in your hand, and you just have to play it. You don't get to go again.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be like, okay, well, this is gonna be on board now. I'll just have to cash out next turn. And in a lot of the way, in a lot of ways, it feels very reminiscent of when Vynnset lists were still on Read the Runes, right? You would play
Mm-hmm.
Read the Runes, you would pass your turn, you'd be like, oh boy, next turn, I'll be able to do something, right?
Yeah.
And it Sonata is definitely, if you're playing towards Mordred Tide, very good. Um, Undoubtedly so. I would replace cards in my deck for Sonata if that was the plan that I was trying to go for, right? But Mordred is not my main focus. Um, it is more of a side piece, I will say. Um, it feels very good when it can go off, but I'm not gonna be super focused on Mordred to bail me out, to win me the game out of every situation.
Mm-hmm.
And in some matchups, I'll look to it more, right? So I know, for instance, in Gravy, I'm gonna get good value off of Mordred, no matter what, because they're gonna set up allies. I'm gonna play mobs guys. I'm gonna attack their allies, right? Mordred's gonna get me value there. So I don't need to look for Malefics that much. And into other matchups, yes, Mordred won't get you the full value that it could, but also I don't think we should discount the card just because maybe it gets 3 value this turn, maybe even if it gets 2 value, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe it got 2 value, but it let you set up for more attacks. Maybe it got 2 value, but your next turn is going to be better without having to lose um uh without having to stop your entire turn just to set up, right? And
Yeah.
Sonata Galaxia feels like a card where sometimes you stop your entire turn just to set up, whereas Mordred, you can still play out your turn and it can make your next turn better without having to stop your ability to do something this turn.
Yeah. So I think that this is a difference between playing vexing and not playing vexing, right? So for me, who always plays vexing, Sonata feels like sometimes you play it and you don't get to go again, but whenever you need to go again, you can just kind of crack Quill Hand and close to guarantee it. Do you think that if you were playing vexing, it would be more of a consideration?
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I think once you put in vexing to the list, it opens a lot different doors
Mm-hmm.
than playing a grass build. And I think that once you put in vexing into your list, then you're not going to be worried about the block value of your cards that much. Then you're going to be more thinking about how I'm going to burst them down, how I'm going to kill them efficiently, how I'm going to do my thing. It's just, I think, player philosophy wise, and I think just sort of like how I enjoy to play the game is definitely a little bit more mid-rangey,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more trade happy. And Vynnset has always been a deck that is very, very content with walking your opponent down life and being like, oh, I'll lose a little bit of life and you'll lose a little bit of life. And then we get to an end game where you have to block everything. Otherwise, next turn, I'm going to draw a Shadow Not attack and kill you on the spot.
Yeah.
Right. So, um, that's kind of like, I think that is just like a difference in philosophy. And also, in some parts of me my playstyle, I am a little bit more of a value gremlin. And being able to use Tunic resource 3 or 4 times a game is just chef's kiss. I will say. So
Mm.
it is definitely a little bit of a different sort of playstyle. And I think that definitely if you're on a different build, definitely vexing opens a lot of doors, right? And I definitely don't want to discount anybody for playing a little bit more setup happy because I think that's naturally how Vynnset likes to play a little bit more.
Yep.
I just personally really like the mid-rangey game, trading, right? that kind of feels like what Flesh and Blood is all about. You play a hand, I play a hand, right? And
Yeah.
eventually the player who like does more value over the course of the game will win out, right? Or, you find some way to like turn the tide, right? So
Yeah, that sounds like that's like the root of this entire deck list to me. Looking at this, is that difference between our philosophies of you want that higher value per turn, want to trade hands, trade damage. And I think that for me, Vynnset's always been more of a deck that like you can't math, you can't necessarily do good math into some of the more fatiguing decks. So hearing you talk about that makes sense why you'd be on Grasp and Sword, trying to use that Tunic counter, because these things improve your consistent value per turn rather than your valleys and spikes.
yeah, and I will say that in a lot of ways you can't boil down these things to numbers. And I think that as a more mid-rangey focused player to my core, I think that was some of the points of Vynnset that was very, I guess, counterintuitive, because you can't max the value of a rune chant in Vynnset, right?
Yeah.
Is it one value because you get one damage? Is it two value because it counts for one resource, basically? Is it three value because of all of the above, or something or another, right? So,
Yeah.
I think definitely in a lot of ways you can't math Vynnset. I think just for me personally, there's a lot of things about the deck that you still can play a little bit more trade happy, and I think that Vynnset is very happy walking their opponent down. I feel like you don't need to super scam somebody. You don't need to like burst them down from like 60, from like 40 to 0, right? And I just feel like you don't need to be in that boat just yet. I definitely will change my idea about decks when like we get a ton of very defensive decks back in, right? Because I also think that an identity of Inset can be more value, more
Mm.
numbers gremlin, like how I enjoy playing the deck. But another core identity of the deck is definitely as a wall breaker, as like this thing that says, illusionists, you cannot play the game because I exist and I will send unpreventable damage at you. And I think that is baked into the core of her being, and I really recognize that. And I really think that a lot of people enjoy her because of that. And I think that all those things bring her a lot of merit. Part of the reason why I want to speak about my list is like, yes, those things are part of her identity. Yes, those things make her strong, but we can still play Flesh and Blood as
Mm-hmm.
um, and more so numbers focused game. We can still play a little bit more trade happy. Maybe you didn't want to play Warrior, but I'm setting Reaping Blade every turn. What can you do?
Totally. A bit more Rune Blade, like classic Rune Blade, a bit more about that value. Think of something like Briar, like getting those Embodiment of Earth blocks, the high value on attacks, makes complete sense.
Hmm.
All right, I have one more deck list question.
Hmm.
Actually, I think I've got two. I think I'm going to throw one in before we get
Okay,
to
yeah, sure, sure,
invert.
sure.
Is
Yeah.
Runeblight Incantation? You mentioned you love
Hmm.
them. You're playing all
Hmm.
three.
Hmm.
What makes you love them so much?
Um, I mean, I think there's enough times where when you're double rune gating or you're triple rune gating that you're not going to start your turn with rune chance, and that's always been a pain point for Vynnset. And I try to kind of subvert it a little bit with having grasp, right? Because you can always banish a card, pitch a card, wait for the turn afterwards in order to do something, be okay that way.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy the fact that you can be on no rune chance, go to the start of your turn, make two, and your two cost rune gate cards are online. You attack with them. You have Malefics on board. They make you some more rune chance, and suddenly next turn you're up to four rune chance. You can send that annihilation that you just drew, right? Um, and it feels very good to go in that style. But I think also I really like to be able to play Nazareth. and playing Oblivion
Hell
feels
yeah.
very, very good in the deck, allowing Nazareth to come on board, getting that value turn over turn. And it's so cinematic too. You just bring out your guy, right? Um,
It's so
and
much fun resolving Oblivion against someone who's never seen Nazareth before. They're
yeah,
like, well, you have
yeah,
to have exactly 6, and then it's like, holy fuck, this ally's broken.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, Nazareth is why I beat Chris Alley yesterday on that on his Kasai list,
Yep.
because I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a little bit of damage, go down a little bit. My rune blood incantations are gonna chip up. We're gonna get to a point where I'll play Nazareth, and Nazareth got to attack 4 times that game.
Hmm.
And getting 24 value out of a blue is pretty good, I would say.
It's a little good.
Yeah, it's a little good.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but I think room blood incantation really helps out on the turns where you've spent your last turn for a power turn and you need like a pick me up a little bit. But also I think it can't be understated how powerful they are to allow you to set up Nazareth, because there have been so many times where I was like, I can win the game through Oblivion, and I IP myself a little bit, take some damage, but I have a Rune Blood Incantation out, and yes, I take 2 off turns, but you're gonna have to deal with Nazareth on the following turn, and I
Hmm.
already set up an Annihilation and Banish, or I set up a Colon Banish, and this Nazareth is gonna stick around for at least 2 turns.
Yeah. I like it. I've definitely thought about going up to 2 incantations in my list, especially because Sonata Galaxia grabbing incantation feels amazing.
Mhm.
Dirging a empty incantation feels amazing.
Oh yeah, I love doing that too.
Um, so it's definitely a card I love. I also find that it's the second best card in the list when you're playing specifically against Verdants, because Scour doesn't hit it, which feels
Mhm,
amazing.
mhm.
So yeah, I think it's an amazing card that when Malefic came out, it kind of replaced Incantation, and
Mhm.
slowly people have realized like playing a few of these is actually pretty good, and they're coming back into lists more and more.
Yeah. I will say that I have always been on incantation. I don't think I ever cut it fully from my list ever. And yeah, I feel like there's merits to what we had to do in the Dark Ages, even though I didn't play that much with the old Vynnset. There's merits to envelop. There's merits to room blood incantation, right? These are
Hmm.
not just cards that are replaced by better cards. They have merits by themselves.
Yes. I assume you're playing one envelop as a good way to use Tunic.
Yes, but also
Works with Raping
I
Blade.
ha I do have a soft spot for envelope specifically.
Hmm.
And I do think that it works really well with your Mordred Tide if you can set it up that way as well.
That's true.
Um so I mean, it's really nice. I for Tunic specifically, I will say that my philosophy on Tunic is okay, it's a bit of a longer explanation. So Tunic gives you a free resource every 3 turns of the game. If we want to maximize value, we're playing a 60 card deck, right? We draw 4 cards every turn, assuming that we're not IP penalizing ourselves. So we'll get through our deck in 15 turns, right? So if we're getting 15 turns of the game, that means if Tunic is generating a resource every 3 turns, we will get 5 resources out of Tunic if the game goes that long, right?
Mm.
So in order to maximize this, how many 1 costs do we want in our to be in our list? In order to maximize the value of Tunic? Well, we want to have 5 or less 1 costs in our list, right? So if I'm running 3 Room Blood incantations and I run 1 more 1 cost, then I have 4 1 costs, and the extra 1 cost can be devoted to a Creeper's activation,
Yeah.
if it comes to that, right? So it it was very much so math based in that aspect of it. But having the envelope, the one of, is very nice. 1 for 4. plus the value off the rune chant, which is you can't math that, right? So and then you get to pay the life into Vynnset. It does all the things that you really want non-attack to do, right? So
Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, trying to actually maximize Tunic. I find that in my gameplay, Tunic on turn 3 or 4 usually gets put into creepers. This is speaking about fatigue specifically. Tunic gets put into creepers on turn 3 or 5 or whatever, whenever I'm ready, and then on turn 8 to 10, it gets put into like Grimoire of the Haunt sometimes, and anything else you get from it is gravy. So it's interesting trying to actually use Tunic as a traditional Flesh and Blood deck would.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, in my own ways, in my own numbers, gremlins things, and then when it actually happens, it's like Christmas all over again, right? So
Sure. Last question about the deck list I have is you play 2 Invert Existence. To me, this screams anti-gravy tech. Is it anti-gravy tech? Is it good into gravy?
mainly anti-gravy, yes. But I have found that it is also useful into a decent number of matchups. Syndra, when she was the big bad, Invert Existence, great into Syndra. They're like buyback daggers. You're like, no, banish them, please.
You just win the game, basically, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you kind of win the game on the spot. Yeah, it kind of turns it into a non-game, which is fun for the Vynnset player, but not so much fun for the person that has to look at their flick knives and be like, well, this does nothing now.
They don't deserve it anyway, so that's okay.
True, that's fair. But I mean, for me, Syndra has always felt like a 0 to 100 matchup. Like, especially when you bring the full fridge into Syndra, there's not much that she can do into Vynnset, in my opinion. Especially when you prioritize your Malefics, when you prioritize your Succumbs, and you try to keep off Blood Debt, it's nigh unwinnable for them.
As long as your deck functions, you'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've had like bad runs of like Rune Blade Hand and a Rune Blade Hand and a Rune Blade Hand and still win out because my fridge is just better. And my cards block for 3 or more sometimes, right? So in that instance, it was still leftover from Syndra, but I think teching into Gravy, not bad. Right? I think there's still a good amount of Gravy representation. I know yesterday I didn't play into a single Gravy, so the inverts never went into the deck. But I will say that the other kind of interesting find for me when I was testing out Invert was Invert into Verdance can be a funny card sometimes. Not only because it's another blue, right? So you pitch it into AB, you're fine, right? It flows with a game plan of grass. You pitch it into grass, you make rune chance, you're fine, right? Early game, if you draw it, you're not too sad because sometimes they send a Felling of the Crown in response to Decompose. No. This Felling doesn't do what you think it does, and it only comes in for 4, right? And also, I have played a non-zero amount of games where at the end of the game they go Stormstriders kill GG, and I go Invert Existence kill you instead.
So true.
Which is very, very hilarious, I think, especially for a matchup that has been so bad for us. And I think it's very spicy in that matchup. And I think given the matchup is already so bad, I like bringing it, like at least one in just for the factor of, hey, maybe I get him, maybe I show the wizard what happens when they try to wizard and you're also a wizard. Well, wizard, right?
It's fun.
And I think there's a decent amount of situations where Invert hilariously does the things that you want it to do in a way that's unexpected. Especially if they understand your deck. They're like, okay, I AB'd so that Succumb doesn't hit me, no blocks, right? And then you're like, I'll invert you to Arcane. You brought only AB1, and then I'll play the Succumb anyway, which is very funny.
Yep.
But it is mainly just a gravy tech piece. Sometimes it's nice. You run into a random Fi, you make their day horrible. You run into random
Mm.
Syndra now that she's not as popular anymore. You make their day horrible, and sometimes they can get verdants. The extra little piece about invert that is a the Iron Maiden YouTube channel only now is it is very very good in the mirror. Um,
Oh,
I have
true.
never told that. I haven't told that to anybody. Um, I figured that out a while ago while I was playing it, and I was like, "Wow, this card is very, very good in the mirror." Um, and I feel like Vynnset players deserve to know what is good in the mirror, just
Well,
because
yeah.
the mirror matchup can be so miserable.
Any Vynnset players that watched an hour and 15 minutes of this recording, you deserve, and you now instant win the mirror. So,
Yep,
congratulations.
yep, yep.
I do love playing the mirror where your opponent puts in like a cull in their banish zone, and you just say, like, I'm not going to take damage until you force me to now. You're going to take blood debt until you can make me take damage.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that can be funny as well. Yes.
Great. So, yeah, I think that covers all my questions about this list. It's been very informative, very different philosophy, but still makes a lot of sense. So, my last question for you is Compendium of Wraith just around the corner. We already have one new sidearm book spoiled. What cards do you want from Compendium of Wraith to make Vynnset better? Do you want like a lot of powerful cards? Do you think she needs, or are you pretty happy with just a few, like just the book?
So I think I'm a little bit biased in this regard because I've always enjoyed being the underdog. I've always enjoyed coming into the matchup being like having my opponent feel like they already won because they got gem luck. Oh, I got gem luck. I paired into Vynnset. Easy win, free win, right?
Yeah,
Um,
totally
and
agree.
I like coming into the matchup and just seeing your opponent get a little bit more frustrated. Like, of course, you don't want anybody to have a bad day, but seeing them realize the power of the deck, seeing them understand that you do nutty things as well, and having them respect the power of Inset, and like always at the end of those games, having a player be like, "Wow, that deck was really interesting. Could I like see your list to try it out?" Is like one of the things that I really enjoy about playing some hero that's not played as much, arguably, right? So for me in Compendium, I do hope that she gets something that's cool other than just a sidearm, right? But in my heart of hearts, I don't want her to become too powerful. I still want time to be able to get on that roll of honor. I don't want all the pro players just to be able to like pick her up without putting in all the time that I put in and be able to get on there without me being able to. Um, and I think that she's definitely gotten a lot of good cards in the past just from like uh Rosetta just being a set,
Yeah,
right?
Rosetta was
Succumb
crazy.
being in that set, Deadwood Dirge being in that set,
Malefic.
Malefic being in that
Mm-hmm.
set. Like it's that was crazy in itself. And then when Hunted was spoiled and we got Cole, I was like, what the heck are they doing? We're just gonna kill everybody. And I think that if they spoil a card that's too spicy, we might get more bandwagoners than I personally want selfishly. Of course, I do want a lot more people to be able to enjoy the fun sides of this deck, but what I'm really hoping for out of Compendium is just like another decent RuneGate card is like something that I would like. Um,
Yes.
Having to play vanilla RuneGate
There's
cards
so
when
many bad ones.
yeah, having to play vanilla RuneGate cards and looking at Rift Scuttle and being like, why did they print this like this? And I mean, there's a lot of things I could say about RuneGate, but I think honestly, if we got another 2 for 5 that did something that wasn't too powerful, I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think other than that, maybe having some more Shadow generic cards just for my own sake, um, come out. That would be pretty cool. And honestly, if nothing else, I really do like those CNCs that were spoiled for it, just because we get to see a little bit more of demons on some art without having to wait for Monarch 3. When is that coming in, James White? Like,
I believe it's supposed to be set 20 would be the theory, but so that's the end of the
oh,
year. I okay, it's getting
I
pushed
can
away. Pushed away.
I cannot wait long enough. Why do we need to wait for Prison to LL so they can come out with Prison 3? It's okay. RKO is already here. You can already come out with Prison 3. I don't care. Ugh.
We're totally on the same wavelength. I just want like 2 to 4 common rarity rune gates or rare level rune gates, things that are on the same level as Deathly Delight. I would be happy with, or stuff on the level of like well, putting something on the level of Yellow Deathly Whale, maybe like a
Mhm,
pretty good card.
yeah.
Especially for Sage as well. I feel like the deck list, I don't know if you've played it in Sage, it's pretty good, but the rune gates are really bad, is the big problem with the deck.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played that much of my Shadow Heroes in Sage just because I treat Sage as a little bit more of a testing ground to play other heroes that I don't normally play.
Yep.
But I will definitely give it a try. It's just definitely that when I see all my cool Majestics being taken away, I can't play widespread cards. I'm like, what's the point of life anymore?
It's alright, you still get to resolve Pummel in Sage, and you can reasonably play 2 of them, and that's amazing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean that is definitely cool, but I mean, Sage is definitely still developing, and I think definitely if we get some more common RuneGate cards, it'll push me to play Vynnset and Sage,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
Totally. Well, I think that covers everything I was interested in. Thank you so much for coming on. Before we wrap up, is there anything you want to plug? Do you have socials that you're interested in, or friends' socials that you want to plug, or anything like that?
Uh, yeah, so I don't have a very big social media presence. I think, in fact, one of the pain points for you was trying to find me in order to do an interview.
It's all good. I've got
I
very
don't
good mods who found you for me.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean that was definitely very nice. I personally don't have a huge presence online. Honestly, if I didn't have to go to work and I could spend all my time at home playing strategy games, playing like runs of Hades or Darkest Dungeon on my computer, I would. Just thinking about card games all day, and I don't really have a social media presence. I do like to give a huge shout out to the entire AG Pro Team, AG crew, especially Anthony Pham. He's kind of the person that introduced me to Fab, Mr. Come to Locals. And I think if you're ever in the SoCal scene, they're really great people to talk to, really great people to interact with. And I feel like I'm really blessed to be in SoCal just because I can go to like an armory every day of the week, and that is just so great for like me developing as a player. The other person that I have shouted out multiple times now on yesterday's stream and a little bit today was Dennis, because him and I have basically cultivated the grass reaping blade list. And I think there's still some work that we have to do. This is not like the end of it, but he is definitely like a huge inspiration to me. Us talking about the list really helps me out. Us talking about Vincent in general is very inspiring. And he does have a little bit more of a social media presence, so it's at Dennis the Tall. He does some stuff on YouTube. That's his Twitter handle as well if you want to go see him there. So I mean, you can ask him about me. You can bug him and be like, "Hey, what's Ian doing?" And I'll get a really big kick out of that. Because him and I are pretty close in some regards, and I think that you guys bugging him about me would be pretty funny. So yeah, I mean, those are the
Right.
people I want to plug. Thank you all to everybody in my local scene. They really helped me out, and yeah, I genuinely wouldn't be here without all the great people I met through Fab.
Amazing. This is a great community. Local scene, incredible. Um, Make sure you play your armories, guys. Playing your armories is such a good way to get better at the game. Join the community. It's great.
Yeah, oh yeah,
All right. Well, thank you for coming along. I think that's going to be the end of our interview today. I don't really have anything to plug, so let's wrap it up. See ya.
yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.